The story of the 2005 Kansas state quarter begins long before the first coins were struck, with a journey that traces back to the early years of the United States Mint and the desire to celebrate the heritage of every state through coinage. In the mid-1990s, the U.S. Congress passed legislation to authorize the 50 State Quarters program, a groundbreaking initiative that would release a series of commemorative quarters honoring each of the 50 states in the order that they ratified the Constitution or were admitted to the Union. The idea was to create coins that everyday Americans would carry in their pockets, that carried stories of geography, culture, history, innovation, and the spirit of a people. For collectors and casual spenders alike, the state quarters became a cultural phenomenon, sparking a resurgence of interest in numismatics that crossed generations. When it came Kansas, many voices from across the Sunflower State advocated passionately for a design that would represent the identity of their home. The selection process for Kansas's quarter design was open, transparent, and deeply democratic, showing how engaged the public was in shaping what would be one of the most widely recognized coins of its time. Citizens, organizations, historians, educators, and collectors submitted suggestions and concepts based on themes that Kansans held dear. The choices were rooted in the heartland values of agriculture, the vast plains that stretch from horizon to horizon, the legacy of Native American tribes who first walked the land, and the ways that Kansas contributed to the broader American story. The U.S. Mint eventually narrowed the choices and invited residents to vote on several design concepts. This invitation to participate proved wildly popular and underscored how much the quarter meant to people, not just financially, but emotionally and culturally. The winning design that emerged featured a majestic depiction of sunflowers, tall, graceful, and spreading their vibrant heads across the coin's surface, Kansas's official state flower standing proudly at the center. Above the golden blooms, the years 1861 and 2005 were inscribed, the first marking the year Kansas achieved statehood, and the second the year its quarter would enter circulation. Below the flowers, the name Kansas curved gently, a reminder that the coin carried not just metal, but identity. This design was more than aesthetic, it was symbolic. The sunflower, reaching toward the sky, representing growth, hope, resilience, and the warmth of the sun that makes the plains fertile. The Kansas State Quarter was authorized as part of the monumental 50 State Quarters program, with the year 2005 designated for Kansas's release. As minting preparations began, the U.S. Mint engaged master sculptors and engravers with the technical task of transforming the design from concept into something that could be struck millions of times, ensuring that every detail from the petals of the sunflower to the curvature of the lettering reproduced crisply required precision artistry and the latest in minting technology. The Kansas quarter was minted alongside other states scheduled for release around the same time and struck at both the Denver and Philadelphia mints, distinguished by the small D or P mint mark on the obverse side. Once released into circulation, the Kansas quarter quickly became a favorite among collectors and Kansans alike. While designed for everyday transactions, many people held on to the coins, preserving them in albums, frames, and collections. The series sparked a cultural moment. Families went on road trips to find each new state. Quarter kids traded quarters. Like baseball cards, and banks reported a surge in requests for rolls of newly minted coins. The surge in collecting also had an educational component. Schools integrated lessons about state history, geography, civics, and art into classrooms, using the quarters as tangible tools to connect students with subjects often seen as abstract. The popularity and impact of the 50 State Quarters program can be seen in the way it brought communities together, sparked conversations about heritage, and motivated people of all ages to learn more about the nation's diverse tapestry. The Kansas quarter in particular became a symbol of state pride, a piece of metal that carried the story of hard work and hope of generations of Kansans. The sunflower which dominates, The reverse side pushed beyond the ornamental to become a visual metaphor of the state's agricultural backbone and its enduring sunshine-filled plains. But the story of the Kansas Quarter is not just about design and circulation. It is also about the larger context of the U.S. Mint's strategy to stimulate interest in coinage and educate the public about numismatics. The program brought an unprecedented level of public engagement to the minting process and highlighted how everyday objects, like coins, can reflect identity, memory, and collective experience. For collectors, the 2005 Kansas Quarter holds specific technical details worth exploring. The coin is composed of copper nickel clad with a reeded edge, weighing just over 5 grams and measuring just under an inch in diameter. The obverse features the familiar profile of George Washington, continuing the tradition of honoring the nation's first president, while the reverse celebrates the state's unique contribution to the American mosaic. The number of quarters produced in each mint can vary, and some collectors seek out varieties, errors, and special mint sets that were distributed exclusively to collectors. In the years since its release, the Kansas Quarter has become a snapshot in time, a reminder of a moment when millions of Americans were united in watching the progression of the state quarter releases and sharing stories of the places they called home. As coin collectors continue to treasure these pieces and historians reflect on their cultural impact, the legacy of the 2005 Kansas State Quarter continues to resonate. It stands as a bridge between past and present, linking the agricultural roots and spirited communities of Kansas to the broader national narrative of growth, change, and unity. Through each sunflower inscribed in metal, the quarter invites us not only to hold a piece of currency, but to hold a piece of history cherished by those who shaped it and inspired by those who carry it forward. The history of the 2005 Kansas State Quarter becomes even more fascinating when we explore the deeper roots of Kansas itself and the broader story of how the 50 State Quarters program reshaped modern coin collecting. Kansas entered the Union on January 29, 1861, at a time when the United States stood on the brink of civil war. The territory had already earned the dramatic nickname Bleeding Kansas, because violent conflicts erupted there over whether the new state would allow slavery. Those turbulent years helped shape the national debate and positioned Kansas as a critical battleground in the struggle that would soon divide the nation. When the Kansas Quarter displays the date, 1861, it quietly references that intense chapter of American history and the courage of the settlers who endured instability, hardship, and uncertainty to establish their state. By the time the 50 State Quarters program began in 1999, the United States Mint was looking for a way to renew public interest. In circulating coinage, coin collecting had declined for decades, but the State Quarter initiative changed everything. The program released 5 new quarters every year, and by 2005, anticipation for each new design had become a national event. Kansas was the 34th state honored in the sequence, and its release followed California, Minnesota, and Oregon in that year. The build-up to each release included ceremonies, educational campaigns, and media coverage that transformed a simple coin into a moment of celebration. Within Kansas, the design selection process sparked debate. Some residents proposed honoring the historic Santa Fe Trail which passed through the region. Others suggested featuring the American bison, a powerful symbol of the Great Plains. There were also ideas to highlight aviation history, given Kansas's role in aircraft manufacturing and its nickname as the air capital of the world. Ultimately, the sunflower prevailed as the chosen symbol because of its universal recognition and emotional resonance. The sunflower was officially designated as the state flower in 1903. And over time it became inseparable from Kansas identity, appearing on license plates, welcome signs, and state promotional materials. The coin's reverse design captured not just a plant, but a symbol of resilience and optimism. The artistry behind the quarter required skilled sculptor engravers at the United States Mint to translate a flat drawing into a 3-dimensional relief suitable for mass production. Each petal had to be defined clearly enough to withstand millions of strikes without losing detail. The die creation process involved digital modeling and hand finishing, combining modern technology with traditional craftsmanship. The obverse continued to feature the familiar portrait of George Washington, originally based on the work of John Flanagan, though slightly modified during the State Quarter program to accommodate design updates and inscriptions. When the Kansas Quarter was officially released in August 2005, launch events took place within the state, including educational gatherings where children received newly minted quarters and learned about their heritage. Banks reported strong demand for rolls of uncirculated coins. Collectors sought examples from both the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. Some also purchased proof versions struck at the San Francisco Mint, which featured mirror-like finishes and sharper details specifically created for collectors. Production numbers for the Kansas Quarter reached into the hundreds of millions, making it widely available in circulation. Yet despite its high mintage, the coin became significant, not for rarity, but for cultural reach. The State Quarter program as a whole generated billions of dollars in additional revenue for the U.S. government because many people removed quarters from circulation for their collections, effectively creating interest-free loans to the Treasury. Economists later studied the phenomenon as a unique example of how public enthusiasm for design and history could influence currency usage. Collectors also pay attention to varieties and potential mint errors on the Kansas Quarter. Some examples show grease-filled die errors where parts of the design appear faint or missing. These variations create additional interest among hobbyists who enjoy examining coins under magnification, searching for small distinctions that tell the story of the minting process. Such details remind us that every coin passes through mechanical pressures intense enough to imprint metal, yet delicate enough to preserve intricate artwork. Beyond its technical aspects, the Kansas Quarter carries symbolic meaning tied to the geography of the Great Plains. The sunflower depicted on the coin grows abundantly across Kansas fields, turning its face toward the sun throughout the day. That natural motion reflects the spirit of growth and forward movement that many associate with the state. The design does not include crowded imagery or elaborate scenes. Instead, it embraces simplicity, allowing the sunflower to dominate the space with quiet confidence. That simplicity may be one reason the coin remains visually memorable even among the 50 different state designs. The 2005 Kansas State Quarter also forms part of a broader educational legacy. Teachers across the country used the state quarters to introduce lessons in history, economics, art, and civics. Students researched the symbols. On each coin wrote essays about state heritage and mapped the order of state admissions into the Union. The Kansas Quarter therefore served as a gateway to learning about westward expansion, agricultural development, Civil War history, and the transformation of frontier territory into a modern state. Over time, as the 50 State Quarters program concluded in 2008, the series left behind one of the most successful commemorative efforts in United States history. Billions of coins circulated and millions of Americans developed a renewed appreciation for the stories hidden in everyday currency. The Kansas Quarter stands as a chapter in that larger narrative representing not only the Sunflower State, but also a moment when coinage connected communities across the nation today. More than 2 decades after its release, the 2005 Kansas State Quarter continues to appear in change jars, collections, and coin albums. It may seem ordinary at first glance, yet behind its simple sunflower design lies a layered story of territorial conflict, agricultural pride, artistic craftsmanship, economic impact, and nationwide enthusiasm. Each time the coin changes hands, it carries forward the memory of Kansas's journey from contested frontier to proud state, and reminds us that even the smallest pieces of metal can preserve powerful chapters of history.